Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh's deposed Prime Minister, who had to flee her country on Monday amidst unprecedented anger against her and violent protests, landed at the Hindon Air Base on the outskirts of India's capital. She is currently in the protective custody of India's intelligence agencies as she waits for the United Kingdom to take a decision on her request for political asylum in that country. Today, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said Hasina had requested permission at very short notice to come to India following her forced resignation. Jaishankar briefed Prime Minister Modi on the developing situation last night. This morning, he briefed leaders at an all-party meeting and subsequently both houses of parliament. At the all-party meeting, Jaishankar spoke of a conspiracy to topple Hasina's government. This was in response to a question by Congress MP Rahul Gandhi, who asked if there could be an involvement of foreign powers, specifically Pakistan, in the dramatic developments in Dhaka. While briefing Parliament, the Foreign Minister said it's an evolving situation with an estimated 19,000 Indian nationals in Bangladesh, even as the violence continues unabated. He said the government is in close and continuous touch with the Indian community and has called on the host nation to provide them the required security. Dr. Jaishankar stated, and I quote, "On the 4th of August, protests in Bangladesh took a very serious turn. Attacks on police, including police stations and government installations, intensified, even as overall levels of violence escalated and properties of individuals associated with the regime were torched. What's worrying is that minorities and their businesses and temples also came under attack at multiple locations. On the 5th of August, demonstrators converged in Dhaka despite a curfew. Our understanding is that after a meeting with leaders of the security establishment, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina made the decision to resign. At very short notice, she requested approval to come momentarily to India. We simultaneously received a request for flight clearance. She arrived yesterday evening in Delhi." Dr. Jaishankar then added, "The situation in Bangladesh is still evolving. We are in close and continuous touch with the Indian community in Bangladesh through our diplomatic missions. There are an estimated 19,000 Indian nationals, of which about 9,000 are students. The bulk of students returned in July." The Foreign Minister then went on to say, "I seek the understanding and support of the House in regard to the sensitive issues regarding an important neighbour on which there has always been strong and national consensus here in India." On the question of minorities, particularly Hindus and Hindu temples coming under attack in Bangladesh, the minister said, "We are monitoring the situation with regard to minorities. There are reports of initiatives to ensure their protection. We welcome that, but we remain deeply concerned till law and order is visibly restored." The Bangladesh situation presents a huge diplomatic conundrum for India, particularly if the United Kingdom turns down Sheikh Hasina's asylum request. On the one hand, Hasina has been a time-tested friend to India, having washed out for its security interests during her long years in office. Therefore, nobody was surprised when she landed in India on Monday, seeking safety after she was forced to flee Bangladesh. But on the other hand, India does not want to be seen as overtly backing the unpopular ousted leader, as that could very likely complicate the country's relationship with the new government in Bangladesh. Let's not forget Hasina's bitter political rival, the principal opposition leader and BNP chief Khaleda Zia, has been released from jail by the army. Zia was thrown into jail by Hasina's regime in 2018 on corruption charges, and the possibility of Hasina's sworn enemy returning to power in the event of a fresh election in Bangladesh cannot be ruled out. Unfortunately for India, Khaleda Zia, during her time as Prime Minister, was openly pro-Pakistan and pro-China and often seen as acting against India's interests. Sheikh Hasina, on the other hand, pursued a delicate balancing act of enjoying support from India while maintaining strong ties with China. Her crackdown on radical Islamist groups, many of which were inimical to India, was a major factor in cementing ties between Hasina and New Delhi. There is now a growing fear that many of those Islamist groups could regain lost power and take center stage once again in Bangladesh's politics. Needless to say, Hasina's ouster and the ongoing developments in a highly turbulent Bangladesh are a matter of grave concern for India. Many, in fact, have termed it a major diplomatic and security setback for New Delhi, which is now closely watching all the goings-on. India's northeast states share an over 4,000-kilometer border with Bangladesh. Infiltration concerns prompted a 12-hour night curfew in Meghalaya, as well as putting border security forces on high alert. The Indian Railways and the country's airlines have temporarily stopped services to Bangladesh. As we mentioned, India has always considered Sheikh Hasina a close friend in a neighborhood where its army confronts both Pakistan and China along hostile and disputed borders. India shares a long border with Bangladesh. Bangladesh is also crucial to the security of India's remote northeastern states, where insurgent groups used to be active. They often took sanctuary in Bangladesh, which shares a porous border with some of these states. On Hasina's watch, India's northeastern border was relatively calm, as she had not allowed Bangladesh to be used by these insurgent groups. There are now concerns that an influx of refugees escaping violence in Bangladesh could become a major challenge for India in the days ahead. External powers inimical to India's interests could gain ground as well. Trade between India and Bangladesh will also be significantly impacted, with business activities at Petropol, the largest land port in India and South Asia, nearly coming to a halt. Sheikh Hasina had ably balanced ties with both India and China. During her tenure, in all its developmental partnership with China, Bangladesh had been mindful of India's interests. India had acted as a mediator between Bangladesh and the West, that was unhappy with the elections held in Bangladesh in January this year, in which Hasina was re-elected for a fourth term. India had told the United States that sidelining Bangladesh would mean giving China a chance to participate in Bangladesh's development and thereby a stake in its matters, which was neither good for India nor for the United States. With the prevailing chaos and changed situation, India is bound to be apprehensive about its relationship with Bangladesh. While issues like river water management still need to be sorted out, India and Bangladesh have seen wide-ranging collaboration on multiple issues in the last 10 years. A substantive bilateral partnership in trade and commerce, people-to-people ties, defense and infrastructure were the hallmarks of the golden era of the Delhi-Dhaka ties. As India prepares to tackle the sudden volatility and turmoil in its neighborhood, it will also be working towards a friendly government in Dhaka. At the same time, India will keep a lookout for other nations meddling in the crisis. Former Foreign Secretary of India Kanwal Sibal tweeted today, and I quote, "Political change in Bangladesh has many negative dimensions for India. A strategic setback, regional instability, loss of a politically friendly leader, a boost to Islamic radicalism in our neighborhood, pressures on our northeast, a blow to our security and anti-terrorism cooperation, safety of the Hindu minority in that country, treatment of illegal migration issues including the Rohingyas, increased anti-India activity by the ISI from Bangladeshi soil, disruption in bilateral connectivity, investment, transit, defense-related projects, more Chinese inroads into Bangladesh, and a blow to India's Act East policy." Clearly a lot for India's government, security establishment and foreign policy wonks to worry about. Sources close to Sheikh Hasina blame China and Pakistan for the unrest in Bangladesh, arguing that these countries wanted to end the moderate Islamic rule of Hasina, where they had little say in favor of the parties promoting radical Islam, like the opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party or the BNP. Meanwhile, exiled Bangladeshi author Taslima Nasreen, a staunch critic of communalism, and Sheikh Hasina, has pointed out the irony in the ousted Bangladesh premier's escape in the face of deadly student-led protests. Nasreen said Hasina had thrown her out of Bangladesh to please Islamists, and the same Islamists were part of the student movement that forced Hasina to leave the country. So what happens next in Bangladesh? Well, a new interim government is likely to take shape soon. Reports suggest Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus has in fact agreed to head this interim government to steer the country through its current crisis. This follows the release from jail of former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia. Dr. Muhammad Yunus won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006 for founding the Grameen Bank, a microfinance organization working towards community development in Bangladesh. He's widely seen as the protesting students' pick, a bid to ensure that the focus of their agitation does not get ignored.